Ooh, yeah, I like this. Cool. All right, take 5. Let's go. You're listening to Career Coaching with John, thoughtful approaches for lasting change. I'm John Fielkowski, and welcome. Today's episode is all about a sense of place and purpose. Side note. The French art scene of the 1920s was a vibrant explosion of creativity, optimism, and change. Surrealism, Art Deco, jazz. This was Moulin Rouge. This is Cabaret. Welcome, bienvenue. Wait, Cabaret was in Berlin, right? Yeah, whatever. At the center of it all was a young black American woman named Josephine Baker. She was born in 1906 in St. Louis, Missouri. She grew up in poverty, working as a maid and a street performer. She was married at the age of 13, divorced, and then married again by 15. If you looked at this woman's life on paper, there was no way she should have become a global icon. As a young black woman who had no wealth or connections, and in the America of her time, she shouldn't have had a chance. Her home city of St. Louis was a place of segregation, of race riots, and public lynchings, and thousands of people like her were displaced because of it. Now, Baker was no different, and at the age of 19, she found her way to France and never looked back, as things were different there. Now, it's not as though there wasn't racism in France, but it wasn't institutional in the way that it was in the United States. Even today, the French have a very different approach to race. I remember hearing the term coin d'Arabe, meaning Arab corner, in reference to convenience stores. To my Canadian ear, it sounds overtly racist, but in that strange up-yours sense of superiority the French carry, it just, well, works. And doesn't seem to change anything. But what do I know? But for Baker, and for a number of black American artists of the 1920s, that difference was enough for them to thrive. Paris didn't see Baker as a maid or a background act, they saw her as a star. She reinvented herself on stage and became the most famous entertainer in the city, and used her celebrity platform to do something bigger, to challenge racism, to serve in the French Resistance, and later become an icon of civil rights, standing alongside the greats like Martin Luther King Jr. Well, what changed? Was it Josephine herself? She was the same woman. I'd argue, and the sources point to this, that what changed was the place, and how her sense of self within it changed. Paris gave her the stage to discover who she already was. And we see this pattern in history again and again. People like Jimi Hendrix, who left the US to find his style in the UK, with baseball great Jackie Robinson, who played the 1946 season in the Montreal Royals, developing his game and confidence in a supportive place before becoming the first black player in the major leagues. And all that meant. This is the thing about confidence. We need it to thrive, but we talk about it like it's a struggle. As if you just have to toughen up, push harder. It's earned through suffering. But what if there was another way of looking at it? What if the person you were supposed to be doesn't match the person you have become? How do you grow in that poisoned soil? In the great conflict narratives of literary theory, man versus man, man versus nature, man versus himself, it is always the struggle against yourself that hits hardest. We are creatures of our environments, and our beliefs and our minds are shaped during our formative years to reflect that. And whether it's perpetual poverty or racism, or the expectation of overachieving, getting that promotion, and making lots of money, we can become prisoners of how we live out our beliefs. And those beliefs can become self-limiting. Now, Baker, Hendrix, and Robinson had that realization early in life. They left their toxic homelands and used their abilities to flourish. The rest of us, though, well, it's taking a lot longer. And we might not be able to just pack up and leave so easily, because leaving gets harder as you get older and you start committing to things. But we can learn how to separate ourselves from that poison soil of self-limiting beliefs. There is a way. We can change our sense of place and never go anywhere at all. And that is where things get interesting. Well, this is Career Coaching with John, episode 13, Growing from the Poisoned Soil. I'm John Fielkowski. Stay with us. Welcome back to Career Coaching with John. I can't relate to the struggles that people like Josephine Baker lived through in the early 20th century. I haven't lived that life. I've only studied it. My story is different. I grew up in central Ontario. I went to university in Montreal. And now I live in what I'd call the most beautiful neighborhood in one of the most beautiful cities in the world. But for all its beauty, Vancouver is a place of contradictions. Maseratis, Ferraris, and Rolls Royces are not uncommon sights on my street. But neither are homeless people suffering from drug addiction. Downtown, the streets are named after 19th century railroad barons, the very men who took the land away from the indigenous people and sold it for profit. This is a city where the one-bedroom condos sell for over $1 million, and if I ever had to leave my rent-controlled apartment, I'd probably have to leave the city. A place where the streets were carved from ancient forests and where the properties were on them have been flipped and flipped and flipped. The same people tear down perfectly good affordable housing and replace it with luxury condos, while the majority barely hold on. And we call this green utopia the world's most livable city. Real estate here has become an obsession, and for most people an unattainable one. And that thought lingers in the back of our minds. I've long wondered what that does to a people. I resent the wealth disparities I see around me. It's easy to believe that success is symbolized by that stuff, and if that's true, then it's just as easy to believe you'll never be successful. As much as I don't think of myself as materialistic, that thought and the lack of opportunity that comes with it makes it hard for me to love this place. And here's the problem. When you live with that belief, it's destructive. Your path away from it gets plagued with excuses. I can't because it's too expensive. I can't because I don't have the experience. I can't because I have kids. I can't because my dog has diarrhea. I can't because I'm not white or I'm not Chinese. I can't because they took it away from me. I can't because I haven't put my time in. There are a lot of I can'ts here. And there are always people who will tell you that you can't. So you push and you push and you push, trying to be the person you're supposed to be. And if it doesn't work out, then you think there's something wrong with you. And so you retreat to your comfort place, to your phone, to your bed, not really being able to be yourself because of this way of thinking. Now, I think a lot of people in the coaching world have arrived at this conclusion from that very same realization. And we all have our own perspective with it. And my guest today is no exception. I want to introduce you to Elaine Yuen, intuitive confidence coach and creator of the Thrive Confidence Self-Mastery Program. Elaine, welcome to the program. All right, Elaine, thanks for joining me today. How are you feeling coming into this conversation? How are you today? Where are you talking to us from?
Well, first of all, John, I just want to say thanks for having me. I'm actually really excited because we have a little prep talk before our recording. So I find that we have a lot of aligned values. So I couldn't wait that I can contribute some values to our lovely audience today about my own story and my definition of success, or, how you have a personal transformation and how that, I guess, holding to the dear heart of the audience.
Yeah.
The career development, that's kind of affecting everybody's life.
Yeah.
Majorly, right?
Can you share a little bit about your journey, where you grew up, and how your early experiences shaped you and shaped the kind of person you became?
Right. So I had a spiritual awakening at the beginning of COVID. So that's my pivotal point of my life. So I'm actually inviting, I try to create a movie scene for the for the audience to kind of visualize what's, how my life evolved. And that's a pivotal point, actually, I guess, for many people. Because that's the time it shifted. Everybody works, right? Everybody work from home, and
Yeah.
So I'm sure I'm not the only person kind of awakened at that point. There are a lot of
You're not, although I never work from home, so I don't have that holiday. But anyway, go on.
Okay. Yeah, not to make you feel bad, John. So before that, I would describe myself as an underdog. So I was just like everybody, surviving in the corporate world, a 9 to 5. and kind of don't know who I am. And I think fitting into the crowd, most of my performance is based on it's looking for outcomes, chasing achievements, and most importantly, it's looking for validation, which I later on realized that. So that's pretty much my childhood to the adult life, and that has a lot to do with, and we can touch base later. That has a lot to do with the childhood patterns and the upbringing. But before that, I'm pretty much an average Joe, just like everybody, try to survive in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Uh,
And what was your desk job, or is your desk job, or
yeah, and I still have it.
yeah?
I'm actually, I always work in the investment industry.
So all the time you were focusing in the investment world, you were looking for the next promotion, you were looking for more money, you were looking from that validation from, I don't know, bosses, coworkers, whatever. And the pandemic came along. And what about being at home changed things?
Before being at home, actually, it actually everything escalated to that point of that spiritual awakening point, which I had an awakening and then realized the pattern that I have. It's, 9 to 5 to try to get to the office and
Right.
then, chain to the desk, and then looking for outcomes, trying to get promotions and try to survive, right? But like I think I encountered like a career bottleneck, which I observed maybe that I have been working hard, sometimes even overachieving and over contributing, but I don't feel seen. But
Right.
then with the at the start of the COVID, then everybody kind of sent home, you work from home. And then that's actually very in time with my spiritual awakening, because most people, if they have a spiritual awakening, they have a period that they have to kind of isolate in a solitude, because that's the time you have to actually reflect. It's similar to some people have a midlife crisis. You came to a point that then you start waking up. Oh, my existing lifestyle is not working. I have to rethink 360 of what my life is about, what is the meaning, and what am I doing. So that's everybody working from home give me some idea to do to those like contemplation and introspection of where my life should be, what are my values.
Yeah.
'Cause, if you hustle and go to the office and then surrounded by all the people all the time, you don't have that space to rethink about your life.
The times that I've been unemployed, or I've been let go from my job, and I am thrust out into the world alone, and suddenly you see everything differently. Like, so all of a sudden
Mhm.
your eyes are open to this, like, what are you people talking about? Why are you doing this stuff the same way over and over? It's sort of a is it sort of like that? Like, you're having this almost a mindset shift of, I'm in a whole new world, and I'm looking out, or I'm looking in at this world that I once lived in, and I'm not there anymore mentally, or I'm not there physically. Is it something like that?
Yeah. So one of my main point of my spiritual awakening is the awakening hit me hard on the major thing of my professional identity or even personal identity. So before my awakening, my professional identity, it's my identity. I sort of don't have an identity outside of work.
Right.
And what happens, same as you, sometimes being laid off may be a good thing.
It was a
you're,
great thing.
you're off the hook, right? And then you can explore about your life and take some risk. So as some people, they're not being laid off, but they may be doing two people's job, or, they're tied. But but at that time, I actually suffered a major career setback. There's a little incident at work that my whole confidence is being like, it's my career heartbreak.
Right.
That's the major beautiful experience. First thing is to actually crack me open by that heartbreak, because without that, like, I would still be in that survival mode, repeated patterns, and I don't have that wake up moment that I need to rethink, right? But then
Right.
I had to realize with that, my career setback, because I used to be like the favorite employee, but because I was like chasing and overcompensating a lot and sacrificing a lot of my like personal time and energy, just now I'm thinking back, I'm like, what, did I have a disease or something?
Yeah.
Like right now, I would think, how could I operate like that at that time? But basically, it was like I was driven by not actually consciousness. It's then I realized it's an underlying pattern of like childhood experience, stuff like that had me. And the major thing is looking for validation. So for
Right.
that validation, I would be willing to go to the end of the world to do that. But because of that major career setback, I was like, pretty much my confidence crumbled because
So
everything is based on external stuff. And then,
yeah.
yeah,
So you would first define yourself by what you did. And this is who I am.
right.
What I am is what I do.
Yes.
And then you have to find validation from within that, because if you've defined yourself as this, then the validation comes from that. And if
Right.
you've been thrown out or disappointed or had your heart broken by that, who are you?
I would use the term because you know how, John, I give you an idea a little bit. I'm quite spiritual after that. But it's in the spiritual world, there's a term called death and rebirth. And that's proclaimed the death of my old identity and
Mm-hmm.
rebirth of my new identity. So that's actually at that moment when I was thinking about it, I thought this is the end of my world. But now I thought it's really the rebirth of my brand new beautiful identity that I start looking inward for validation because with that experience, I'm actually taking away every opportunity that I can lean on an external achievements or validation to determine my self-worth,
Mm-hmm.
which is a beautiful experience.
Can you describe some of that work that you did? I mean, some of that examination of yourself, or
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Well, first of all, there's some grieving to do,
yeah.
grieving of my old self. So definitely, same as like in the spiritual world, we talk about healing. There is a certain part that I actually have to cry because one of the thing is I think with most of the people that operated in this hustle world, in the spiritual world we call it overly masculine energy. So we operate in a mode that is overly logical because
Mm-hmm.
you're only based on logical like linear events and the certain outcomes. You're actually ignoring part of yourself, which I call it the feminine energy part. So which is the intuition that I'm talking about, because I'm an intuitive confidence coach, and we are
Right.
totally ignoring that part. And that part actually allows you to go in and connect with your inner self, your deep self. So there's a lot of there's some crying to do actually. That process unavoidably you have to trace back to what happened. What contributed to the personality you are today. So a lot of people unavoidably will look at your childhood experience.
Yeah.
That's the first point because how your parents raise you, right? So it unavoidably for me, I had a heavy childhood trauma experience in some way. I think we have certain childhood experience that shape ourselves today, and particularly that's how the society works, is everything is based on external focus.
Well,
um,
you have your formative years. It was between, like, as a kid, when you soak into everything up. Then you have, as a teenager, you define your own identity. But in those defining years, you develop your beliefs, and all the things that are in your environment shape those beliefs. And then you come out with some, as a human, as a person, whatever that might be, right or wrong. That is the person that you've become. And
right.
you have to live with that. I would say you have to live it. You don't necessarily have to live with that, but you are living with that person, and
Yeah.
and you may not even notice that you're living with that person.
So John, I'm going to introduce some like concepts, how that contribute who we are today, right? So
Yeah,
I would describe us when we are being born as a child. We are a blank piece of paper. So it's
yeah,
a blank, pure, and then people start writing content onto our blank piece of paper. So that could be the parents, right? That could be the society or how it works. And those stuff that being right on our blank piece of paper could, let's say for parents, right? But parents, they have their pattern as well from their great grandparents, from all the ancestors, from all the generational. Maybe they have trauma, or maybe they have limited belief. So
yeah.
all this got carried to us. So basically, who we are today, every generation pass on. Every generation, we are carrying maybe like 20 different characters of the generation before us. That if they haven't changed their way, they haven't transformed. It's just each generation passed down, right? So
Isn't it the saying, like, it takes 7 generations to remove the trauma from some point? I think
yeah,
that
that
was
could be right.
yeah.
There's a lot
There
of
was some, yeah, something in there. Anyway,
Yeah,
go
there's a
on.
lot of work in there, right? So
Yeah.
there are different modalities, right? There are people involved in hypno, or some people talk about past life, right? So all this are very woo-woo stuff. But what I need to look at, basically, it's my pattern, right? So what makes me today? So there's a lot of reflection on, which part of my shadow I have to actually go deep and find out, and even go to my subconscious work. My initial healing phase is I have to spend a couple hours in my backyard just to get that connection with the nature and really focus inward myself. And then I have to do introspection. And then I did a lot of journals.
Or heartbreak to mourning to healing
Right.
to the healing comes through that introspection of who actually am I,
Right.
and how do we start to have that conversations with ourselves, or what is like when we make that moment of saying, okay, it's enough of the morning, and I need to pull myself back. I need to define who I am now, because I'm no longer this person.
Right.
What is that? What does that look like? What does that become for people? Or
So that's basically the later part of the healing, right? So initially you have to go deep inside and, identify a lot of shadow. And for me, it's kind of a natural process, because spiritual awakening did a lot of those processes, right? But when I help some of my clients right now, they don't necessarily have a spiritual awakening. But
yeah,
for me, it's like suddenly, because the spiritual awakening would suddenly raise your consciousness. So your perspective start changing. So I'm kind of mirror my own experience into my program and help people to, the earlier of my modules, help them to actually look inward, look at all those generational trauma patterns, and then help them to rebuild the sense of self. So what you're describing basically is the later stage of the healing, that you have done quite a bit of healing now. Like you kind of aware of your new identity, but now you have to come out again from your shell and face
yeah.
the world.
You work with women in a corporate world, right? Is that generally your client, or
Yeah, because
yeah?
I work with mostly that's my preference. I mean, it doesn't mean like if somebody it's an entrepreneur,
Hmm.
but if you become an entrepreneur, you probably have a very good mindset shifted already. They
I don't know
probably
about that, actually.
hustled a bit,
Yeah,
but but in the corporate world, yeah, definitely need a remake, and that's mirror my, because whoever I'm helping, I'm just like, I'm not really far ahead of them. I'm a little bit ahead of them. That's why I'm the best person to help them out.
yeah,
But basically, go through mirror my life journey. Basically, they will come to me. They have a career setback, right? So that's the trigger point that they want to work on themselves and grow. And then I bring them into the program and then work through the modules, and then have a mindset shift, and also deep down, like a remake of rebuild the sense of self, and then bring to their awareness of, oh, they have this pattern of looking for validation. And initially, sometimes it's hard for them to accept that. It takes a while for them to digest that, because they will think, oh, what's the problem? Because everybody's trying to, it's performance, right? Like, what's wrong? I'm trying to prove my value. And that's the old programming. So there's a lot of unlearning of the
yeah.
existing condition. And then part of my coaching program is help them to rebuild self-love. Um,
So much about what motivates me and what I do is when I think about the things that I kept doing wrong, and I decided it was time for me to learn from it. Because I was never particularly happy with my career. So I think it's not like it was bad. It was never going well. And, I'd be in a job, I'd do it for 2-3 years, and I would get bored, and then it would end badly. And then I
right,
get another job, and I do it for 2-3 years, and it would end badly. And I had to think, okay, well, but, all these people can't be wrong. They're running their own places. They're running their businesses. They can't be wrong. I'm probably the one who's wrong. So I need to learn something from this whole thing.
right. And
And
I would say the first point, that when you have that failure, is the most beautiful thing, because most of the people, they won't change, right? Like if I try to convince somebody to join my program to change, if they haven't experienced a pain point or a failure, they're not thinking about that.
I've been thinking a lot about the idea of a sense of place, and
Mhm.
how a sense of place shapes the people within it, or like my own sense of place, whether it's my home or my city, or like when I'm on a vacation or I'm someplace new. It's the sense of place changes my perspective and opens up my my mind, or inspires me. But even sometimes it's not even about like the geographical location. It's more just how my mind is in the place within it. So like the point of being let go from my last job and feeling suddenly out of the club that I was such a part of, looking outside, looking in, my
Right.
place, how this changes. Like, how's your sense of environment influenced your work and your confidence or your sense of place?
Right. And I would call your sense of place. I in my definition, I probably will call it home. HOME, home. And what I call home, it's the home should be inside us. That that we shouldn't actually tie our value to a group's situation. Because in that sense, maybe at that point of time, you were kind of tying your self-worth being valuable as an employee, right? And once that external, so that's all my new theory of the confidence is it should be inside out. If you place anything of your confidence, your professional identity based on an external environment, whether a title, like a promotions or achievements, right? So that's where your confidence is most fragile. And once that being removed from you, then you start questioning who I am, and your self worth probably went to all time low as well, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I would say bring home back to yourself, because and that's one of the painful lesson I have to learn as the underdog to the chosen one. Is again you have to choose yourself because you're not placing your value to an external environment because you are the valuable employee. You are only valuable because you contribute, right? And if we don't need you, then we don't need you. You are of no value, right? But if
Yeah.
we adopt that thinking and externalize it, and equate that's our self worth, then that's and you know what? With that conversation, I have the same conversation with some colleagues that were let go. So I that reminds me I have that one conversation with one of my superior, and I think she's pretty discouraged because maybe there's a change of new management, and so is my signature client. They have a situation, there's a change of their senior management, so the person coming in, it's no longer you know they had a relationship with, and the world turned upside down
Yeah.
because it's a different senior management. Maybe they don't really value you as much, but that's the
Interesting.
thing. I think the programming is we always place our value on external opinions rather than, because the truth is actually based on our essence. And
Right.
the whole spiritual thinking is the essence of we being as a human being, we are by ourselves complete. We don't need out anything external to us to make us valuable. We are born valuable. So we have to shift the mindset that way. And that also ties to self-love, right? Like if you
Yeah.
love yourself, you won't be easily discouraged by somebody's opinion that doesn't represent your value at all. So that's
Yeah. It reminds me of a situation a friend of mine was in. And yeah, 2 years ago, she got this job and she was working as directly under the CEO and was pretty happy, all told. And then somebody left the company and they thrust her into a role that was much bigger than her. It was some director of marketing thing. And it was the biggest role she's ever taken on. And to her, it was like, I don't know if I can do this. And said, I don't know if I can do this. And the CEO said, no, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. We need you to step up. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And a few months go by and I don't know if she's not doing it necessarily, but she doesn't feel like she's doing it. She's not getting the results, and the company itself's not getting the results they want. So
mhm,
CEO flies in somebody else, somebody he knew from before, some, I don't know, very powerful person, total alpha female type. Like, I'm going to go and we're going to change everything. And my friend suddenly went from feeling confident about her job to feeling just crushed.
right.
And like, how could this person come in? How could this person say these things to me? How could they always put me down? How could I always feel like I'm so small and and for me, the question was always like, well, do you know what you want?
Right.
Like, have you ever been able to express yourself for what you want? Have you ever been able to say, hey, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But
So like my signature client in this situation is, I mean,
yeah,
after she came into my program, then I bring her awareness to a lot of things that she's just focusing on the job. She wasn't thinking about herself. She doesn't know her needs. She doesn't know who she is.
yeah,
And then she's not aware of her feelings as well. So all these things are actually pretty determined on how she behaves in a work environment. So that's where I bring her back to her sense of self. And, instead of externally focused on, oh, how this person treated me, why is this, it being a victim of the situation, right? Being the
Yeah.
circumstances. She need to take back her power. So
Almost to say like this was you didn't realize it, but it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy because you've been so weak as you within yourself have been really weak. And it doesn't, you're not being able to be your best self. You're trying, but you're trying almost the wrong thing, maybe,
right.
or you don't know what you should be trying to demonstrate.
Yeah, that's true too.
Does that sound right?
Yeah. And
Hmm.
and one of the main things I think is you have to know your value. Sometimes it's really not about your performance, what you do. Because
Yeah,
I've observed kind of case that, like I recently I have a colleague he has a really good performance, but at the end of the day, the team restructured. He just got cut off like that, even though he has top of the line performance. But again. I think it's the value part that come into place. There are certain things in her accolade that kind of missing, so even though he has a top of the line performance for the last 2 years, he still got cut off.
that's
Uh,
interesting.
Pretty
Yeah.
shocking moment too. So
Well, yeah. I mean, you're doing everything right, but it's almost like the people outside can recognize when you're authentic somehow.
yeah.
Or maybe they say, well, we know you're good at this, but we really want it as a leader. Welcome back to Career Coaching with John. That was Musanova with dub reggae lo-fi hip hop. Finding music for this show is actually one of my favorite parts of the process. You do have to be careful though. Always read the music licenses. I look for tracks that the artists give away for free use. There is a lot of copyright-free music out there, but that doesn't mean you're free to use it for whatever you want. Read the rules or your show won't be aired. Broadcast. I don't know what you call this. Webcast. Getting licenses to do whatever you want. Yeah, well, that gets pretty expensive. Anyway, I link all the music you hear on the show in the show notes. In case you are interested in learning more about the artists, listening to the music, or supporting their work. Speaking of support, this episode of Career Coaching with John is brought to you by the very first friend of the show on Patreon. Well, that support bought us this brand new pop shield for the microphone, and this message is the very first recording with it. I wonder if you can hear a difference between this and what we did at the beginning of the show. I don't know. Anyway, hopefully you'll notice an improvement in the production quality. Thank you again for your support. If you keep listening, I will keep producing. And if you do choose to support the show as a Patreon member, it goes a long way to making it all sustainable. I don't expect to ever make a living from what I get on Patreon, so you can be sure that every dollar you contribute goes right back into the show with music, with equipment, or whatever else comes my way. To learn more, visit johnfielkowski.com/podcast. Now, back to the program. How do you get the people? I mean, if you define yourself, when you start to understand, okay, this is who I am, this is who I want to be, how do you get people around you to come on board to the person that you are becoming?
So to my experience, I have that experience because I have the longest time that I'm being passive.
Yeah.
and let my superior or manager basically making my career. That should be ourselves taking ownership on that. So I have a lot of changes in the management, in the person that I work reporting to later on. Every one of it, I don't know how short time we work together, but the very first meeting or second meeting that I make sure I expressed my career needs to that person and actually have that discussion of, how I see myself in the organization and in the team, because I actually find out a lot of people get promoted, jump like, to grade or something.
Yeah.
These people, they may not be the most hardworking person. They're just being good in articulate what they want. And they early in the game, they actually position themselves to take advantage of, because a lot of those opportunities, by the time they post it out, it's really like a late stages, right? As you know, John, being a career coach, usually those hidden opportunities, it's like you have to get to the conversation with the senior, be inside the club to know about those opportunities, so you can
Absolutely. Yeah.
position yourself for that, right? So so that's the depth of my old thinking. It's like, you based on performance, I'm working hard, heads down, and not socializing, and not actually having that constant communication with the management. That's put me in a very disadvantaged position.
Yeah. And as a coach, I mean, as the when we're talking about intuitive confidence, the idea being that if you do know yourself, you start to know what to ask for.
Right.
And when you start to know what to ask for, then you actually start asking it, as opposed to asking what you think you should ask for based upon the evidence that other people tell you and the bad advice that you might get.
Right. That's
And,
totally true, because a lot of time management, sometimes they're redesigning the department or something. They don't
mhm,
necessarily, they may have a vision, right? They don't necessarily, sometimes like they make decision on the fly. Who knows? It's not like a 10-year planning process. So you got to know what you are looking for first, and then you
yeah.
give a blueprint or plan to the managers so they can accommodate you as they evolve. They're changing the department, then they can, Elaine want this, and maybe we can accommodate her in this role or something. And you also express your interest early in the game, right? So it's not like, you're the last person who find this out.
Yeah. You become part of the conversation. And
Right.
I guess that then if the answer to the question, how do you get people on board? The answer is to almost just to start asking for it then. Not fear the answer, because the result is less important. What's more important is that you're coming from a genuine place, or
Yeah.
you're satisfying your own need first.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what? That's a perfect point, John, because I want to echo that. That's the whole part of a lot of high achievers. They're seeking, when you seek validation, right? You tend to neglect your own needs. So you would definitely have a problem or block in expressing your needs.
I thinking about, like, if so much of our world is defined by what you should be optimizing your resume, LinkedIn, whatever, you should be settling your language around how the computer can read it versus how you can read it, or how a human can read it. But if we all do that, then we're all just the same person. And so where's your edge after that? I mean, how do you ever move forward if you're just like everybody else, and there'll always be someone who's better at it than you?
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, the answer's got to be, how do I actually demonstrate my humanity?
Hmm.
And I don't know if one can demonstrate one's humanity if you think like a computer and you haven't really had the time to just to get to know yourself in that profound way.
Yeah, and actually, if you have that clarity of self, and that kind of emotional intelligence, that you have that kind of self mastery, and you have that confidence coming from inside,
Hmm.
um, you will attract opportunities easily than trying to chase one down, because you don't know what you want and you apply for every opening position. I think a lot of people falls into the mindset, they especially in a group environment, they like to compete with people,
Hmm.
and then you it tends to externally focus on the other person. Like sometimes that person have a promotions, like, oh, I want that too, right? But maybe that person has a different path than you, and they know what they want. Instead of focusing on other people, I think we should be clear on who we are, what our value is. And I think the value part is very key because I think a lot of people don't know their value.
I know a lot of people don't know their value. I put a question out to my listeners a couple of episodes ago, and I asked, what is the one thing that you want people to know about you?
Right.
And it's not like one thing that and everybody gave me their job title. It's like you want people to know that you're a teacher. You want people to know that you work for the government. That's what you want people to know you for. Well, no, okay, then try again. What is the thing that you want to be known for?
Right.
And I mean, I've actually come to thinking because, I originally thought, okay, what do I want to be known for? And I think, all right, well, one of the things I want to be known for, or the thing I want to be known for is what makes me me. And I talk career. So I'm going to talk me professionally and says, well, I look at complicated problems and I'm able to drill them down and explain them back in ways that people understand them. And that's my talent as far as I'm concerned. I mean, like, prove me wrong. So, but it's not like I'm a career coach, because what does that mean?
Right. A lot of people equate the title or the professional identity as the identity.
Oh, you do people's resumes? No, I don't care about people's resumes. I care what's on them, right? I care that you're demonstrating who you are.
Right.
And that, to me, is like, if I can't get that, if I can't hear what the problem is, or if we can't get to the point of what the problem is, then all we are doing is optimizing our resumes. I'm not sure where I'm going with that, but it's always that problem of like, maybe I haven't really figured this part out yet either. And I have an idea of what it is, and I want to keep pursuing it. And it's certainly not like defined, but I've started it, and in starting it, I can now provoke other people to do it as well. But really, that always coming back to like, what the hell's my value? What do I bring to the table? How am I different? And it's not my education, and it's not how much money I made my last boss. That doesn't mean anything.
No.
What matters is, okay, what is actually like the accumulation of all my learning, and how am I going to use it to really bring value to my own life and to the people who I work with and the people around me? What is that value? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, but you're challenging a lot of people because they hold that identity for most of their life. So that's really calling for like a self-awakening. It's really key because so that's my program helps bring those clients back to themselves and find out who they are. Because my coaching tagline, it's actually the tagline is "Your truth will set you free." So I basically, all my offerings is help them to go into a deep self-discovery to find out their own self and their own truth. And then what happens is you'll be free after that because you will break away from all the things that have a hold on you. Basically external expectations, or, do I have to fit in the crowd? Do I follow somebody's path? And that's what I basically help my clients is because, at this critical moment, you're not looking for another quick tip sheet on how you can climb up the ladder in the corporate world, but really turn that focus external into internal, facing yourself, and find out what's the true path for you, and you create your path that way.
Yeah. And that's where your Thrive Confidence Self Mastery program comes in, right?
Yeah.
And what is that about, and who is it for?
Right. So the Thrive Confidence Self Mastery program, it's based on 4 pillars. One is to help you elevate your confidence, master your emotional intelligence, and then tap into your intuition and creativity. And the last part is align your body, mind, and soul. So this program, it's good for high achievers. I usually work with ladies. I mean, if gentlemen want to work with me, I don't mind too. So high achievers, which they, just like what we talk about, they kind of externally focus, looking for validation and lost their sense of identity. And most probably you come into a career roadblock, or you're feeling, even though you have worked so hard, you gave so much, you care so deeply about your job, you're still feeling unseen, unheard. And when promotion times come, you're being overlooked. So those are the best for, because I actually structured that program exactly in that 13 modules. So I can walk them through the whole process that I went through. And I have to spring a lot of like spiritual wisdoms. And then I also mix with a lot of immersive guided meditation to help them go into the deep subconscious, so they can have some realization, so they can have some truth coming out. There is some journal work attached with it. So it's a whole very creative experience, but it's also helped them to, because most of them, when they come into my program, like I said, they're overly masculine, they're overly logical and external focused. So by the time they work on those modules, they will be more balanced between the, maybe the general language, they call it yin and yang, but your masculine and feminine energy is kind of balanced. It's different from people talk about work-life balance, because that's actually a myth. It never, nobody actually ever have successfully work on that. But I'm talking about really alignment, because the whole thing is you have to align of what you want and what your value and who you are as a person. And once it's aligned, then you can embody that true confidence shining from inside, and then you can actually shift from a survival mindset into like a thriving lifestyle, or like a more fulfilled lifestyle.
When you welcome the other person, the other part of you into your life, and you welcome that person into the and
so at the end,
it lets both sides thrive almost. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. So at the end, they won't call them, like if I ask them the same question again, they won't call themselves, I'm an accountant or I'm a lawyer.
All right. Elaine, thanks for being here and sharing all your stories. I have one question. If there's one thing that our listeners can remember about this conversation, what should it be?
Well, if I'm going to leave one tip for the listener, is I just want them to realize that your worth is not measured by your title, your salary, or your performance. True power is when you choose yourself and stop chasing external approval and start trusting yourself.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
Oh, it's well said. All right. Thank you so much. And let's keep this conversation going.
Thank you, John.
I sometimes worry that this show gets a bit too self-helpy, too preachy, or that I circle the same point over and over and lose the original message. So let's bring it back to the sense of place, what Elaine called home. Let's dig into that. What is home? Home is where your people are, where your heart is, where you can be yourself. Now, does that mean that your workplace should become home? Well, no. Look, you might have heard this episode and thought, are they saying don't measure your life in increments, goals, and KPIs? As though those are bad things? No, again. The point is, for whom are you attaining those KPIs? And are they serving you in the way they should? Have you ever stopped to think what should is? So, going back to the idea of home, the sense of place, should I strive to feel at home at work? The point Elaine was making is that you are stronger when you are yourself. And when you know who that is and what you want, you aren't just working, you're working towards making your life better. Elaine made a really interesting point that I didn't fully pick up on while we were recording, but I heard it clearly in the edit. She said that when she starts working with someone new, she makes a point of telling them what matters to her. She expresses her interests right from the beginning, and that empowers her. That puts her into the conversations that matter. Did you catch that? She said, in the corporate world, most decisions are made on the fly. And the way to move ahead is to be in those conversations. The people who end up in those conversations are the ones who've expressed their needs, their values, and their ideas. Who will they think of when one of those ideas comes to fruition? By the time a decision is announced publicly, by the time your LinkedIn optimization strategy actually comes into play, there have been thousands of little decisions made, and those decision makers are influenced by people, the strongest of which come from those who know themselves. This is the difference between I just want to be given a chance and this is what I do best. Now that seems like a really simple strategy. Why? Because it builds resilience when things go awry. Seek validation from others and you failed. Seek it from within and you try again. Why? Because you're at home. This is Career Coaching with John, episode 13, Growing from the Poisoned Soil. A special thank you to Elaine Yuen for her insights, and to Sophia at the Coach Foundation for connecting us. If you want to learn more about Elaine's work, I've included a link to her website in the show notes, as well as a free guide for professionals to begin to build unbreakable confidence. Today's musical guests were Nick Nat Art, Musanova, and playing us out with this wedding reception jazz is Dennis Pavlov Music. As always, you can learn more about me at my website, johnfielkowski.com, and explore ways to improve your career and, of course, support the show. And if you know anyone who needs to hear this message, please share this episode and subscribe to the show. This is Career Coaching with John. I'm John Fielkowski. Now go enjoy your day